Oh God, Tenille's on the show. Oh God. And yeah, I'm having a whole fangirl moment. I'm your host, Sha, and you're tuned in to the Tingz Nice podcast, a hub for all things Caribbean carnival, culture, and lifestyle. While I do consider myself to be a carnival professional, I've brought some industry experts along to impart their knowledge as well. Whether you're a newbie or a long-time carnival veteran, you're guaranteed to step away with new knowledge. Let me talk to Tingz. What's up, good people? Happy March. I usually don't say this, but I was beyond ready to close out the month of February. And I know that I did not have an opportunity to bless y'all with a solo episode because there was way too much happening on the work front. Okay. So as the Black Student Union advisor at a predominantly white institution, I had to do my due diligence and set the things off proper in my inaugural year as their advisor, right? So we're no business with that. But the things got done and we got rave reviews from our programming for the month. And I'm already planning for next year, and I'm hoping to pass off more and most of the responsibilities to these teenagers because ain't no way I'm doing all that work again. And I really hope that I mean that. So I hope you had a wonderful February, and we are getting closer and closer to the summer, which means more carnivals, more fetes. And I am just so ready to be outside. It's been gloomy. It's been rainy. Thankfully, there really hasn't been that much snow, and I'm hoping that the snow is done with for 2024. All right. So remember when I asked y'all to submit some anonymous questions during my birth month? Well, to compensate for my super mild absence in February, I decided to add a little segment to this episode to answer some of the anonymous questions y'all dropped last month. So you can let me know whether or not I should keep this little Q&A segment for future episodes. And we're going to dive right into like 3 of the questions that were dropped. And then next month or the next episode, I'll add a couple more and so on and so forth. Okay. So if you want to hear my full list of responses, you can head on over to my YouTube channel in a couple days and you'll be able to see everything and hear my answers. So the first question, which I thought was timely, right, was how old are you turning? But how old did you turn, right? Since it's in the past, I turned 41 years old. I'm a proud 41. I'm not one of those people who don't look forward to getting older. I enjoy it. I love being more seasoned. I love the wisdom that comes with age. Are there things that I would still like to accomplish? Of course, right? But I'm pretty content with my age and who I am. And I love kind of being more secure in my body and secure in my mind and my personality and all those things. So yeah. Next question was, are there any more children on the horizon? So as an only child, I grew up an only child. My father did have or does have 3 other children from his first marriage. Me and my siblings were familiar with each other once upon a time. Like there was like a 3 to 5 year span where we were kind of close, right before I went to college. And then as we got older, we just kind of grew apart, even though we weren't like close to begin with. But anyway, so that's that. So I am not a fan of having my daughter be an only child. So to that end, if my 41-year-old body will allow, right, and they call people who have children over 35 geriatric. So being that I would be a quote unquote geriatric mother, yes, I would like to have at least one more kid. For my daughter, right? It's not really for me. It's just so that she would have company. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with being an only child, especially as your parents get older. And I don't want that for her. I also get a little envious around my friends who have siblings that they get along great with. And don't get me wrong, I understand that not all sibling relationships are great, right? There are rivalries, right? There are those moments where siblings actually don't get along and they don't like each other and they are not tight, right? But I'm hoping that we would foster a family dynamic that would promote that type of familial love, right? The same type of love that I see in my friends and their families, in my aunts and my uncles, right? And so on and so forth. So yeah, I would love for her to have some type of sibling. So there's my answer for that. More children on the horizon if my body allows. Okay. And then the last question that I thought was actually kind of timely, and it's cool to answer this question in the beginnings of this season of the podcast. So the question was, who is your ideal audience? So thank you for asking that one. So when I started Tingz Nice, I was talking to, right, in my blog post and on my website, I was talking to people who already knew about Carnival, right? I was responding to questions from friends who were asking me about my experiences. So at the time when I started carnival hopping internationally, because I've always gone to carnivals from young, but I didn't participate in them, right? I was an onlooker, a bystander, whatever you want to call it, right? But I didn't start diving in until like my college years. Like we would go to Caravana, we would do like t-shirt masks and like local bands in the States and things like that. But it wasn't until 2010 that I started moving about the Caribbean. And when I came back from my travels, my friends would ask me about them. And me being the person that I am and not liking to repeat myself, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and create this website for y'all. Let me do a little blog thing and I will write down my thoughts, write down the happenings for you. And you can then read for yourself, drop your questions in the comments. I'll respond and then other people will see your questions. And if they have different ones, then they'll drop their own questions or whatever, and we'll go from there. Same thing happened with the design. So if I went to a carnival and I designed my boots or I did some accessories for myself, then my friends would be like, oh, can you make me some? And then I would make it and then I would post it on my website, and then it just became a whole thing. And then they told friends. And so that's how we started, right? Like I have always been directing my focus to individuals, usually of Caribbean descent. Like at the time, I wasn't really aware that there were so many other people that were not Caribbean that were attending carnivals, right? But now I know, right? Like now, we have people from the diaspora, right? All over that are attending, and even, colonizers, if you want to call them that. But anyway, and so I think that's kind of why I used to struggle with people calling me an influencer, because I'm just like, I don't know that that's what I am, because I'm not necessarily telling people to go to these places. Like Tingz Nice was a platform for me and is a platform for me to, again, share my experiences. I think I'm not necessarily focusing on monetization. Like if it happens, cool, but that is not my goal. I just appreciate the engagement. I'm here for the laughs. I'm here for the joy. I think once I am like thinking too much about what content to put out there and how often I'm doing it and all of those things, then that takes away the fun of it. So I'm glad that I'm actually back in the zone of creating for the sake of creating, because I enjoy it and I enjoy the product that comes from it, and the feedback, and knowing that the information that I'm putting out there is filling a void, is entertaining, and is content that people find valuable, according to their words, not mine. So I am still talking to the people who already know about Carnival. I'm talking to people of Caribbean descent. And if there are people who are on my page who do not know about Carnival escapades and such, then, I welcome them, but I'm not necessarily directing the information to them. There might be a few things that I end up responding to, like questions that they might have, and I might then create an article based on the questions. But again, it's information that everyone can use. Just because someone is from the Caribbean, it doesn't mean that they're familiar with Carnival, right? So that information might be helpful, right? My mother, for example, has no idea, has never attended an international carnival, even though she's from an island, but she has never had that experience, and therefore would not even know, where to start and what to do with all of that. So for clarity, I like telling the stories. I like putting the content out there and sharing my experiences. And if you then want to go to that destination because you had been thinking about it, or watching that video has put an idea in your head, then by all means go forth, right? But you're not going to hear me say, go here, right? You can't say, Sha told me to come. No, I didn't. I just shared my experiences, and because it looked so good, you decided that you wanted to go too, right? I mean, and I guess that is some form of influence, but again, that's not my goal. My goal is to just storytell and share and show you the beauty of the Caribbean, because it's just beautiful and I'm proud, right? I'm not trying to increase the population of people attending Carnival. But I also understand that I'm probably doing that by default, right? That's just naturally going to happen. And if you know me, you know that I can get real stingy when it comes to sharing experiences. If I found an event or a carnival that I absolutely love and adore, and I am concerned about it being spoiled or watered down in the future, especially if I plan to go back the following year, I will hold my tongue. Okay. Granted, I do have a small audience. My audience is not like this massive, 100K million. No, I have a very, what do the bands like to call them? Oh my God. What is boutique? I have a very boutique following. Okay. That's what we're going to call it. I have a boutique following. And granted, that may not make a dent, right? But there are a number of people kind of no matter where I go, they'll be like, oh yeah, I read your blog and you helped me do this and that. All right, cool. Right. So if I feel, especially when all you had to start bringing your American friends, and granted, I still am American, right? Because I was born here, but still I have a dual citizenship. But, but when y'all start bringing people and are not educating them about where you're going and how to carry on and all those other things, and you're just adding to the population and not adding of quality humans, it becomes a problem for me. So for example, Jamaica Carnival 2017, mind you, everybody was up in arms about, Jamaica have Carnival, blah, blah, what they know about that, blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, you have beef with it. Stay over there. You don't want to hear dancehall? Stay over there. Right. I had such an amazing time. Jamaica 2016, 2017. 2017, I came back. I was like, I'm not doing any recap videos about this. I'm not writing any articles about this. I'm going to leave it just so. And granted, my, efforts did not help because 2018 was still just everything I didn't want it to be. And I was like, and this is why. So once 2018 happened and Jamaica got like bombarded with people, feds got watered down, things just changed, over the vibe just changed. I was like, you know what? All right, well, I done. Let me go back and talk about 2017 now. I think it's safe, right? So then I started like spilling out stuff. But for unique experiences like that, I do kind of get very stingy with information. But once I'm over it, so for example, now that I know that I'm on my, I'm calling it my last lap tour, which means that, for the most part, I'm not doing repeats, right? And I've said this before, if you've listened to other podcast episodes, or if you've been on my social media channels or YouTube or wherever, you probably already know that I am, being very selective with where I'm choosing to go, because I am somebody's mother now. I'm limited on time. Funds are looking very different than they did before. And I want to experience new things. I don't want to continue to invest in products that I've already experienced. So even if I go somewhere now, I'm okay talking about it and writing about it and creating content around it, because I know that I'm not going back. Or at least I'm not going back anytime soon, right? And even if it was great, right? So I'm about to go to St. Vincent, and in my mind, I'm like, even if this is great, my experience moving forward would not be identical. Like, I'm no longer in that mode of like chasing repeat carnivals. I'd rather take those coins and go to a next adventure. So it's okay for me to share, right? And again, I'm not necessarily, it's not about prepping. It's just like, okay, well, this is what happened. This is what the trip looked like. And if you want to gather yourself up to go for the following year, all right, have at it, right? If Turks and Caicos had a carnival, that would be a different story, because I know that we would be trying to get people to the country, right, to attend, right? And a lot of those events that I'm already going to, I just really don't feel like they need that publicity or that promotion, because people are already in the know. Like, y'all already have people flocking to this island. It's gonna be okay. Like, my little vlog is not really going to do that much. Well, at least in my perspective. Maybe I'm talking myself down a little bit and I shouldn't be doing that. But that's just where I am with that. So I can get very stingy, okay? I just wanted to put that out there. All right. So now that you have learned a little more about me, it is officially time to meet our guest for today. So I just want to remind you that season 5 of the Tingz podcast is all about getting to know the individuals and the organizations who are making big waves on the Caribbean carnival scene and just the Caribbean scene as a whole. It doesn't even have to be related to carnival. And our guest today falls under that category. So we are going to hear from Tenille Clarke, and she is like one of the boss ladies on the Caribbean front right now. And again, not just in carnival. Okay. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I am going to say that she is doing very big things in the publicity arena, and she's doing those big things for well-known Caribbean brands, well-known Caribbean individuals. Okay. So if you are heavy on the soca scene, if you're heavy on the Caribbean scene, if you've been keeping up to date on things, then you already know about the late and the great Blacks. You already know about Hector Lewis from the Bob Marley movie that just released last month. You already know Teddyson John. You already know Voice, and you know Solange Govia. Okay. So all of them and many more, all of those people are clients of Tenille. Okay. And I learned so much during this episode, and I really hope that you do too. And we had a very lovely conversation, and I'm just so happy that she was able to join me, because listen, y'all busy. All right. So we're going to get started. just so you know, to see the video recording of this interview, go ahead and head on over to my YouTube channel so that you can see Tenille not in person, but you could see her as she talks about herself and all of her wonderful accomplishments. Okay. And we talk about a lot of things. So let's get into it. And it is time to meet Tenille Clarke. Let's talk to Tingz. All right, Miss Lady, when you are ready, if you can introduce yourself to the people, tell them your name, your profession, and then which country or countries you're representing.
Okay. My name is Tenille Clarke, and I am the Managing Director and Principal Publicist at Chambers Media Solutions. I am also the founder and managing partner at Industry 360 Limited, and I am also a storyteller and, by some people's definitions, a journalist.
Awesome. And which countries are you representing?
I am representing Trinidad and Tobago as well as Canada because I'm a dual citizen.
All right. So before I get started in the interview with the questions, I like to do this little game called This or That. So I will pose two options and then you share which one you prefer and why.
I hope you have mangoes in there.
Sometimes.
I love mangoes. Oh my goodness. Anyways, let's get into it.
Well, my debate the struggle for me is like once upon a time it was like, okay, mangoes or pineapples, like which one is my favorite? I think now, more seasoned adult, I'm like a mango person, but it used to be pineapples. I don't know why.
No, pineapples can come in like maybe a top 3 or top 5, but mangoes are they're just so diverse. Like every time I think about mangoes, I think about Bubba from Forrest Gump, the way he speaks about shrimp. There's so many different varieties of mangoes and so many things you could do with it. It's great.
Okay, but do you like it sweet or do you like it mixed? Like, what's your preferred taste? Like,
I like tart foods. So I am a half-ripe Julie mango kind of girl. That is like a dream.
Yeah, I don't like them when they're sweet. I like it like right, either tangy or like touching sweet, but not all the way.
Yeah, same.
All right. Carnival Monday or Tuesday?
Whew. Carnival Tuesday.
Okay. A lot of people say Monday. I get mostly Monday responses.
Monday, I think a lot of people love it because of the freedom and liberation that comes with you being the best version of yourself on the road. But Tuesday offers that perspective, just the grandeur and the spectacle of Carnival Tuesday. I mean, I grew up looking at my aunts playing in Peter Minshall. I have very distinct memories of them playing in the War Donkey era where they were all donkeys crossing, the Queen's Park Savannah stage, and the spectacle and the sight of that. Those are things that are etched in my memory for infamy. So Tuesday.
I hear that. When you are working, right, do you prefer the writing aspect or the being in front of the camera?
Writing. That's easy. I'm a behind the scenes girl. Contrary to popular belief, I love being behind the scenes and just watching the wheels turn. I do the front of camera when absolutely necessary, but I've always been a behind the scenes girl.
And then lastly, when it comes to communication preferences, phone call or voice notes?
Generally speaking, I prefer phone calls just because there's a lot of clarity and distinction that comes with phone calls. I still feel as if voice notes, things can get lost in translation. But voice notes are also convenient things, especially for the pace of the environment that we work in as publicists. So, yeah.
Thank you for playing my little game. All right, so the beginnings of Tenille Clarke. What does it look like? What's your origin story? How did you get into all of the things that you're doing?
So I grew up in East Dry River, Port of Spain, which for those who may not necessarily be familiar with the geographical landscape, East Port of Spain is where Carnival was born. I grew up at the foot of Laventille Hill. So Laventille, Despers, just that genuine Carnival experience has always been something that has been ingrained in me because it's something that I witnessed a lot as a child. I went to Bishop Anstey High School in Port of Spain. And about a year after I finished high school, I migrated to Toronto. My mom actually lived in Canada for most of my life, since I was 3 years old. So I migrated to Canada. I went to York University in Toronto. I lived there. You know, I had a great experience there. And then my grandfather passed away, and I'm very close to my dad. So when that happened, and then my grandmother passed away a year later, I made the decision to move back home to be closer to my dad. When I moved back home, I already had an interest in communications. My degree is in the humanities with a specialization in social sciences. So I already had that credible interest in communications. When I moved back home, I started working for a digital communications company. But I found that there were a number of things that were limiting, and there were also a number of things that I felt this space needed to see in order to experience true development as it relates to public relations, communications, and media. So I made the decision after, like I said, very close to my dad. He said, you need to quit. You need to quit your job because I feel as if you have more things that you need to do, and people will be able to benefit so much from your mind power, you know? So I resigned from my job, and we went and we set up my company a few weeks later after careful consideration, and that's where Chambers Media Solutions was born. My dad's name is actually Gordon Chambers, so the business is named after him.
I love that. So what is the difference between Chambers Media Solutions and then also Industry 360? So how are we able to differentiate the two?
So Chambers Media Solutions is a public relations agency that services Caribbean clients on a global scale, and also servicing clients from around the world that are looking to enter the Caribbean market from a public relations and publicity standpoint. So we work with brands, entities, organizations, and public personalities across a myriad of sectors, whether it's fashion, film, music, the arts, whether it's sustainable development, finance. We've had the experience has been in multiplicity. Industry 360 is a social impact organization that is focused on mentorship and workshops and things that are able to help elevate the Caribbean creative sector in a number of different ways. Media is just one way that Industry 360 can use to amplify Caribbean storytelling, but it's not. Chambers Media is the publicity and public relations arm, and Industry 360 is the social impact arm.
I love that. Okay, so with that, talk to us about, well, number one, I want to hear about Trinidad Carnival and your experiences this year, but I also saw the article about your Oasis event. Talk to us about that so that people are like, oh, what's this?
So Trinidad Carnival, for me this year, I felt for the last couple of years, I've been moving with a lot of intention in terms of how do I add value to what is already a very brilliant, dynamic space? Solange Gavaya has been a client of mine for probably about 15 years at this point. She had a wonderful season. You know, everybody appreciated her costumes. All of her sections across the bands were sold out. She always has excellent customer service. So that was a great win for us this year. With the Oasis, that is with my business partner, Tenille Clarke. We're not related, but we've been close friends for almost 2 decades. And that is an alternate lunch stop experience that offers luxury, rest, relaxation, and all of the good things that masqueraders and non-masqueraders look for in a rest stop experience. So that's what the Oasis was. This was the third year of our execution. It's always very well received. I think because this year a lot of people have been focused on the quality assurance of their experiences in the carnival season, it felt as if the visibility of it increased exponentially because people are looking for value for their experience. And of course, it's an invitation only experience, and it's free to those who attend, So for us, it's just about adding value to the space for what is already a phenomenal carnival product.
Is there any intention to open that up a little bit to the public, or is it always going to be like an invite only?
While we do plan to scale with intention, the beauty of the Oasis is in the intimacy that it offers the persons that are attending it. So we may scale in terms of bringing the Oasis experience to another carnival's another carnival iteration. So any of the other carnivals, Caribbean carnival experiences. But I think for right now, we're just focused on the intimacy and just offering that very intimate vibe. There are some people that don't have an interest in playing mass, but that doesn't make them any less loving of the carnival experience. We want to be able to offer them a safe space to experience that luxury and that rest and that great balance between wellness and lifestyle.
So with all the things that you do, so 1 minute I'm seeing you're in Jamaica, and then the next day you might be in Trinidad at somebody's radio station on live. So what is like a typical day in the life, or I don't know, maybe even a week in the life of Tenille Clarke, and like how do you juggle and balance all of the things, all of your responsibilities?
I don't think that there's a typical day or week in the life. I'll be perfectly honest. And if you've been following, what little I do put online, because I feel as if what I document online is essentially a microcosm of what my actual life is like. There is no typical week. What I can do is run people through what I did in the first month of 2024. The first week of January, we hit the ground running with Tedison John's show Stripped. So there was a campaign period to build out for that. We had digital billboards to build out. We had ads to build out, newspaper ads. We had radio ads to see about. I worked closely with the creative director for that project, Abiyo Jackson, just to make sure that her story was brought to life in the right way publicly. And then maybe week 2, that's when we really started to get into the nitty-gritty for Solange, because we're looking at costume distribution, we're looking at customer service, making sure that everybody has what they need, that they're happy and satisfied and comfortable with their costume and the overall experience. The third week in January, I was preparing, Tedison show actually happened. Solange was preparing for costume distribution. Hector also had Bob Marley One Love film coming out. So I actually flew to Jamaica the third week in January to make sure that he was good for the red carpet experience and things of that nature, which obviously, the Bob Marley, shout out to the Paramount team, etc. A brilliant film. The entire cast was fully invested in the experience, and you can see it now in the numbers. You know what I mean? It being the #1 film in the US, and it still hasn't been released in markets like Japan and Italy and that kind of stuff. And then the last week in January, on actually the 31st or the 1st, I flew to Grenada, because Grenada had their independence, 50th anniversary independence. I'm so proud to partner with Melissa and Pure Grenada and the Grenada Turns 50 committee, with involvement from the Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, and all of the other private and public stakeholders to reintroduce the press trip experience for Grenada as a precursor for what is to come for South Mass. And then I came back And we executed Trinidad Carnival, Solange on the road, and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm still dealing with Bob Marley interview requests and things of that nature, which is fantastic for Hector as a debut Hollywood actor that has worked very hard to get to where he is now. And we keep moving.
Busy. So this was not a question on my on my pre-interview question, but what does it take to become a client on your roster? Like, is there ever a moment where you turn someone down?
I do. And that's the reality of this situation. I guess after being in the business for so long, it's a two-way street. The client chooses you, but you also choose the client as well. I've always been very passionate about working with people in the orange economy, creative industries. I think that is one of the Caribbean's greatest, most valuable, richest exports products. So I have a tendency to work with musicians and artists and designers and things of that nature. But I also am very much focused on scaling with intention, regardless if you're talking about Chambers Media or Industry 360 or the Oasis, or even with the stories that I write. I'm always scaling with intention, and I try not to overpromise and underdeliver, because I'm very, very laser focused on quality assured work. That's me all the time. So yeah, you do have to very much be aware and cognizant of what your schedule looks like and what your capacity is. That's the reality for any business owner. And I always tell people, just make sure to deliver on the things. Focus on doing the small things right. That's always what I try to achieve with my work.
Switching gears a little bit. So I'm going to throw 3 words out there: journalists, influencers, bloggers, or content creators. What feelings come to mind when you hear those words, either individually or collectively? Because there has been a lot of conversation about influencers versus bloggers, or, who's doing what and who's annoyed by what from, viewing them and such.
By the way, if you are enjoying the show, we would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review this podcast on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or wherever you tune in. Your support helps us reach more listeners like yourself. And don't forget to subscribe and follow our social channels to catch all the upcoming episodes and Carnival content. All right.
I think the integrity standards for those 3 categories are always going to be different, and they'll always be evolving. But the common thread or the commonality among the 3 of them is storytelling. They are all storytellers. They all have a duty to bring words and experiences to life for the people that do not have the opportunity to firsthand touch and feel and see and taste and experience these things. So while the integrity standards may be a little looser with some of them and a little tighter for journalists, certainly, there are international journalistic standards and such, storytelling forms the basis of everything that each of those categories do. So I don't feel any way towards the work that any of them do, because I think they're all valuable. And at the end of the day, they have their piece of the puzzle in the grander ecosystem that we all occupy.
Thank you. That was well said. Girl, you be doing this.
Thank you.
And then another, I would say, controversial topic recently has been about like the state of Carnival. And, people you have one set who are appreciative of where it's going. You have another set of people who are like, I don't like where it's going. We're losing tradition. We're losing culture. What do you feel is happening? How do you perceive Carnival right now?
I think that there is space for all of the elements that are being birthed or have emerged in this space. But what I think we need to do is just remember the nucleus of everything. I remember when I first took Blacks on as a client, one of the first things I said, you have your story. Everybody knows your story. You're a Black boy that grew up in South Trinidad and then moved to Laventille, and your career blew up. But I said, there's certain things that we have to formalize. You have to do a photo shoot. B was never a fan of photography for whatever reason, but he understood why it was necessary. We actually did his first photo shoot at Dr. Leroy Clarke's house. And when you go by Leroy Clarke, you have to sit down and have a conversation with him for about an hour before you can start to do the work. So I remember sitting down, talking, and Dr. Clarke, and I still remember it to this day. He said to us, Carnival has to implode first for people to recognize what the nucleus of it all is. And he never gave a definition of what implosion is, but maybe his version of implosion is what is happening right now in terms of the very polarized dialogue that is happening on the circuit. I think we have to remember where Carnival started and who is responsible for it. I am always up for the growth and the development of this space. I'm always up for looking and seeing and observing dynamized ways for people to bring economic impact to the Carnival space. But as a girl that was born and raised in East Dry River, Port of Spain, when I see things like the parade routes being diverted from the back of the bridge, that breaks my heart. That's where I grew up. Like that's my stomping ground. So I really think that there needs to be a more multidisciplinary, inclusive approach to the Carnival experience. And I'm speaking specifically about Trinidad Carnival because, one, that's where I live, and two, that's widely considered to be the mecca of it all. So I really do believe that we need to take that inclusive approach and recognize the layers of value that the Trinidad Carnival experience brings to the Carnival circuit. When you think about traditional mask characters like the Dame Lorraine and the Peregrinade and the Bat and all of these other characters, when you think about stick fighting and bois, when you think about calypso tents, there's space for all of those things. But if we are now zoned in on just one particular element, which is the mass, where does that leave in the peripheral vision of all things? Where does that leave the other elements that are so valuable and so intrinsic to what we do in the ritualization of the Carnival experience? Where does that leave the things that matter to us from a historic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, from a heritage standpoint, from an economic standpoint? Where does that leave those subproducts? And where does that leave the people that participate in those subproducts? Are you saying that they are less valuable to the indigenousness of this space because there's no place for them? Can't be that. We have to figure it out. And that requires it requires different levels of intervention, both from a public and private partnership standpoint.
Yeah. So if you had to get like very granular, like three ideas, three things that you would implement off the top of your head to kind of make that happen.
Three things that I would like to see would be the decentralization of the Port of Spain Carnival experience, ironically. There are multiple Carnival experiences that happen in Trinidad and Tobago at the same time, especially in that intense 2-week period. There's carnivals in Arima, there's carnivals in San Fernando, there's carnival in Sandy Grande, there's carnival in Central, and there's carnival in Port of Spain. People need to know more about those experiences, because if they knew that, they would not only participate in the experiences, but they would realize that there are different economic offerings that can meet people's different needs as well. And it doesn't make it a situation where, because you're not participating in Port of Spain Carnival, it makes it any less valuable or you're less seen or anything like that. So decentralization would be the first thing. The second thing I would love to see is a more formalized approach to our music industry and helping artists to understand the value of certain things, whether you're talking about DSP or distribution arrangements or agreements, whether you're speaking about the public relations arms of things, whether you're speaking about the actual music production element and just giving them the basic information and tools that they need. That's the second investment that I would love to see. The third thing that I would really love to see is some kind of production facility that supports carnival designers, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the Caribbean. If we developed a production facility that could meet the needs and continue to have discussion on how that work is done and executed, then things like JSC conversations about taxing designers and taxing artists would have a more nuanced approach to the conversation. And it's not just about taxing artists. It's about making meaningful, progressive change to the space that can benefit a broader cross-section of people.
Those are good. When you were talking about the decentralization and all of the different carnivals that happen in different areas of Trinidad, what do you feel like is the underlying reason? Like, because a lot of people don't know that. So is that more of a publicity thing on their end for not kind of pushing the information out? Or do you feel like it's more on those who are interested in attending to do the research? Or is it both?
Both. I think that our public sector arms have a responsibility to inform and advise the public. And that is a perennial activity. That can't just happen in a 3-month radius. To inform and advise the public so that they're making informed and advised decisions. But I also think that people need to do the research and, find the touch points and the heartbeats of the different carnival experiences as well. And I also do believe that we as Trimbagonians also have a responsibility to be brand ambassadors in our own very little way in identifying what those key elements are and sharing it with the people that may not necessarily have access to the information.
I've been in so many comment sections of various posts, and you have the people who are like, nope, we're going to start gatekeeping and to keep people out of the country. And then you have, the people who are kind of like, soca to the world. So it's just been a very interesting couple of weeks kind of reading through all of the things that are taking place. All right, back to you. Your most cherished accomplishment thus far?
Goodness. As a publicist or as a writer? As a writer, just because it's recent memory and because we're just coming off of another carnival season, the story that I wrote for Elle magazine, the Everybody is a Carnival Body story that went completely viral, which I was not expecting at all. Like, I just knew that I wanted to write that story. And I had a phenomenal editor in Danielle James, whose parents are also Trini. And she just believed in this story, took tons of research, lots of months of digging and making sure that this story was airtight. But when it was released, I just felt as if it just blew people's minds that a story that is born of us is placed in the biggest fashion publication in the world. Like, statistically, there is no doubt where Elle is in terms of, publication reach and things of that nature. And when Danielle told me that this story reached it, there were millions of hits on that story on the website. It's one of Elle's best performing stories for 2023 out of the thousands of stories. So I think for many different reasons, as a writer, that was a high point for me. As a publicist, wow. I mean, there have been a lot of things that I feel I've been able to achieve for us as a region. But again, just because it's top of mind, we're in the current happening of one of those journey high points is representing Hector. I mean, Hector has been my client for almost a decade now. We started when he was the percussionist for Chronics and Sing Fans Redemption. And we scaled with intention and grew his identity to be many different things. I mean, he was a musician. He's a music educator because he graduated from Endermanley College for the Visual and Performing Arts in Kingston. And now he's a Hollywood actor, you know. So just to witness that meteoric growth from him over the last few years and just seeing all of that hard work really, really paying off for him, that for me, that is a joy that continuously gives and it continuously feeds. It feeds my ability to want to help more people. It feeds his ability to show Caribbean creatives in the region that these things are actually possible. And it feeds our community as well because we are now visible to the entire world because of this Bob Marley film.
I'm going to pretend as though I don't know much, and so that we can educate people, and there are individuals who are looking to get into your field, right? So number one, how do publicists and managers differ?
Publicists are responsible for telling the story, and managers are responsible for accessing the resources so that the stories can be told. That's the simplest way. And managers are also not booking agents. They may double up in terms of having both profiles under their portfolio, but in most instances, especially when you're speaking about music, managers and booking agents are separate interests.
Okay. And then in terms of your writing, so you write this article, you publish it. How do you then, how does the monetization happen, or does it not happen? What does that even look like?
No, I'm paid for the stories that I write. So I think the biggest or the most daunting challenge for persons that are looking to enter the writing space is not knowing how to get the stories landed with the different publications and the level of difficulty, especially with the rapidly changing media space right now. There's so many layoffs and such that are happening. So it's making it a contentious space, both for full-time writers with publications and for freelance writers as well. But there is no way of you getting around pitching and strengthening your pitches, because I do it all the time. I pitch to new publications all the time, but you have to strengthen your pitch and just make sure that you're doing the research. You're making sure that it's a right fit for the publication. Is it a story that absolutely needs to be told at this point in time? Is it an evergreen story? You have to do the research. There's no easy way around it. There's no magic wand. I do the work like everybody else.
Yeah, thank you. So you just gave one tip, do the research. What are a few other tips that you have for people who are looking to kind of follow in your footsteps?
Maybe you can ask the universe for 28 hours in a day. No, but with that being said, time management is also a really, really important, critical action item. You have to manage your time. But you also have to rest. You have to rest. You have to rest. You have to rest. You have to make sure that your body is ready and willing and able and capable of taking on the weight of the responsibilities and the workloads. And as I mentioned earlier, do the small things right. I think people underestimate often how much people pay attention to the little things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me doing the little things right consistently for a number of years that helped me to crack the ceiling. You know what I mean? Everybody talks about the glass ceiling and breaking the glass ceiling. But before you break the glass ceiling, you have to crack it first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And with all of my clients that have successfully entered or elevated into new spaces, they've cracked the ceiling first before they completely shattered it. So, and that requires consistency. Think about how hard it is to break a thick piece of glass, and you're feeling like you're not making any progress until one day you hear one and that's what it takes. One that's just one and you have to keep hitting until it shatters.
Oh my God, thank you. I'm so glad. I am so grateful for your time. I know that you are super busy, so thank you so much for joining me. And before we close out, just share with everyone where they can find you, how they can connect with you on whatever platforms that you have.
So you can find me, my storytelling website is www.Tenille, T-E-N as in November, I-L-L-E -Clarke, CLARKE.com. So that's for all of my writing work. You can also find Chambers Media Solutions online. That is www.chambers with an S, media solutions with an S.com. You can also find Industry 360 online. That is www.industry360.org. On social media, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Tenille Clarke 1. You can find me on LinkedIn at Tenille Clarke. And yeah, I think on TikTok at Tenille Clarke 1 as well. I don't think that I'm forgetting anything else. I think you can find me on Wikipedia as well. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to go live in it now. But thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Wasn't that conversation amazing? Was it not amazing? I have not even met Tenille, and I am just so proud. Every time I see her on my Instagram feed, I'm just like, yes, such an inspiration. And I'm just proud to be Caribbean whenever I see her working, and she is always working. Definitely boss woman status. So thank you, Tenille, for joining us. All right, Dahlia, that's it for this episode. I will catch you on the next one. You might get a solo episode. You might get another guest episode. I don't know. We'll see how the spirit moves me. But you should definitely remember to go and follow me on my social media channels. YouTube is popping right now. There is a recap of my Antigua Carnival adventures from 2023. I'm also going to post my Trinidad adventures, even though it's like a year ago. It's okay. It's still relevant and it's still great content. And also I've been posting some viewing parties most times, right? That there are band launches for whatever carnival or festival. I have been putting my thoughts on my YouTube channel, and they're called my viewing parties for the band launches. So go over and check it out. I just did one for Vincy Mass, and I'm very excited about that because I'm actually going to Vincy Mass and had to choose a costume last week. So go and check out and see which band I'll be playing with and whose costume I'll be jumping with. All right. Later, have a wonderful first couple weeks of March and then some. Later.